Today is a very special episode for two reasons.
Is it? Why?
Well, reason number one, today is our 25th episode. You kind of peaked your
Sorry
mic
for
there,
all
and
you wearing earbuds.
you kind of peaked your mic there, and it lagged a little bit, but that's probably for the better.
It it dang it.
But no,
All right, what's the second reason?
the second reason is that this episode comes out on your birthday.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, who cares about that? I do, but nobody else. Okay, so moving on.
So, happy birthday, Wesley. I know it's early
Aw,
at this point, but
shucks.
happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, that actually, I wasn't even thinking about that, honestly, until like right before we started recording. I was like, oh yeah, this one's supposed to be my quote unquote birthday episode. But you know, I guess that is a weird thought. It's about a week away. My birthday is, but we'll get by. We'll get through it. It'll be over soon.
Mm-hmm. And because this episode coming out on your birthday, I actually let Wesley pick the topic completely by himself. I was not involved in picking
He
the
actually
topic
let
this
me
episode.
do something for once.
Exactly. Exactly. So Wesley was not involved, or I was not involved with picking the topic of this episode at all. So Wesley chose
Well,
to.
besides the gun to my head.
Uh huh. So Wesley decided to talk about Back to the Future, and we're talking about the first one
Wow.
today.
So wait.
What?
So does that mean that if this video crashes and burns, you're just gonna be like, well, Wesley chose the subject. No wonder it crashed. So you're doing all this so you have a safety net. But see, you know what happens if it goes and it just takes right off? It's all me. None of you. None of you.
No, it's still my idea to let you pick the topic.
Oh, okay. I see how you're spinning it. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense now. It makes more sense how you come out on top in both ways.
No, no. So we're talking about the first Back to the Future today, and we'll be talking about the other two later on. Wesley,
That didn't help.
yeah, I was about to say you just went black.
I know. I thought it would help more because my camera keeps dimming the light, and I'm trying to get more, but I don't know. We'll make do with what we have.
Mm.
But anyways, continue talking while I interrupt you.
Anyway, so I do have more on this about being our 25th episode later on, but what do you say we go ahead and dive into Back to the Future?
We can do it in the future.
Well, it's the future now, so.
Oh, dang. Well, hey, here's the thing. If you have not, as someone listening to this, if you have not watched the fantastic trilogy of Back to the Future, go watch it. It's amazing. It's definitely worth your time. It's a movie from the first one's from 1985. And then they come out a couple years later. I think the second two come out like almost back to back years, but they're like later in the 80s. I think maybe almost the 90s. But they're older movies, but they still hold up. They still look great, and it's just a great story, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about that, I did want to make the comment, and this is purely talking about the first one. Since, like you said, we're talking about the first one today. Um, it's such a like the story for the first Back to the Future movie is so well told that like, and I was telling Sarah this within the first 15 minutes, there are so many things set up that pay off a little bit later down the road. So you meet let's see, in the first opening scene, you hear news broadcasts when the television cuts on about some terrorists and them supposedly stealing some plutonium. Well, at the beginning of the movie, you don't know what the plutonium means. You just see it, and then a little bit later, Marty kicks a skateboard, and you see a thing of radioactive, material, all hinting towards the plutonium. Um, and that's like laying the groundwork for a little bit later. You find out that Doc Brown actually, well, he ripped off a bunch of terrorists with a fake bomb. for the plutonium which will power his time machine. But you find that out a little bit later on down the road. After school, after Marty goes to school and then comes back, after they get out of school, then um, they're sitting around, and him and his girlfriend, I think it's Jennifer, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're sitting around, and you hear the clock tower, save the clock tower in the background, and then they come up in their face and like save the clock tower, you know, hinting back. Like that's not as subtle, but it's subtle starting out. And then you have like the little thing where the auto dealership is getting the 4x4 truck, which comes in later in the movie. Um, Within the first 15 minutes, you find out how Marty's parents met, and obviously that plays a key role in the movie. But just watching through it, there were a couple of things that I was like, man, this is a little bit like this part right here doesn't make sense, which mostly comes down to the plot armor for the DeLorean. But outside of that, the rest of the story just like unfolds like extremely fluidly and like very very naturally. It just unfolds very well, which it was directed by Steven Spielberg, and he's a very good director.
Mm.
Um, but
And
I just wanted to make that comment, just how well the story was told in this movie.
one thing I want to bring up too is just how influential this movie was. Like
Mm-hmm.
it like Back to the Future invented most of the time travel tropes that we see in most movies and TV now. In fact, it might have been,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure it was one of the first like bigger blockbusters to deal with time travel. At least,
Yeah, the from what I heard, I don't remember how many studios shot it down. But this movie was shot down a couple times by different studios before it finally got picked up by who has it? Is it it was Universal, right?
I have IMDb pulled up right here. Hold up. It was. What are you gonna tell me?
I think it was 20th Century Fox, but it could be. But you will find out soon enough.
I will try. Hold up.
Dang it, David, stop sucking over there. Gotta be better than this. I expect better. That might be my fault, but
Yes, you are correct. It was Universal Studios.
okay. But yeah, they shopped it around for a little while, and nobody cared to pick it up because it was a movie that was not, it was a risky movie at the time.
Mm-hmm. And one thing
Which,
I guess it's because he's playing an older character, but I didn't realize Christopher Lloyd is only like 40 when they filmed the
mm-hmm,
first one. Like,
yeah,
like he's in
he
his 80s.
was
He's
he.
in. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say he's in his 80s now. Like generally I tend to think of him as like 60 when he was filming Back to the Future, but no, he was just around 40.
Well, one thing cool also I found was that so obviously the cast, Marty's parents and Marty were all, around the same age because they had to go back in the past. But Marty's dad, George McFly, was played by an actor who was actually younger um, than Marty, than Michael J. Fox. He was about 2 years younger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because Michael J. Fox, even though he was playing a high schooler, he was I think when they filmed it, he was like 24, 25, I think.
Yeah. Um, One interesting thing, and I don't have it pulled up right here, so I don't remember what the actor's name was. But so another casting thing that was kind of interesting that I found was, and I would love to find out who the actual actor was. So I'll do some research into that while we're talking. But Michael J. Fox was the original idea to play Marty McFly, but because he was on, what was that show he was on in the '80s that made him a little bigger? I think it was like Family Ties or something like that.
That sounds right.
Something Family.
That sounds right.
Um, so anyways, his the guy who made that show was writing that show or producing that show was like, no, you can't go and do this other thing because we need you for this. So they started out with another actor and they started filming some scenes.
Eric Schultz.
Um, which Eric Schultz, there you go. Which two of the scenes actually made it into the movie that they shot with him.
Mm.
The one scene where he's diving into the DeLorean, and then the one scene where the fist goes and punches Biff in the diner. Both of those were Eric Schultz. But they cast him starting out, and then things didn't work out with him, so they were like, we got to get Michael J. Fox in here. So for the time span that they were doing this movie, Michael J. Fox was working during the day on Family Ties or whatever the show was, and then at night, so he'd work like maybe like 7 or 8 to 6 on Family Ties, and then he'd go from like 6 or 7 to like 2 or 3 in the morning, working on Back to the Future.
Mm.
And he did that for like weeks on end. And and apparently the comment he made was he was like, I'm only 23, so I'm good, But
and if you remember,
nonetheless, it came out to be a very good movie.
yeah, and if you remember, that was actually one of the things they had done in the Flash that just came out. But one of the things is like oh, things are different in this timeline. Is Eric Schultz actually was Marty McFly in Back to the Future.
Yeah, that's what that. I do remember that. It was Family Ties.
Okay.
I looked it up just to fact check us.
Mm.
Needs to be done all the time.
But since we're kind of on topic of it, what you got?
Go ahead. I was gonna say that on the topic of like actors playing certain roles, there were a couple other names I heard for it, but one that stuck out that I know, and then also I think would be actually kind of good for this role. For the role of Doc Brown, Jeff Goldblum was actually in consideration.
Would have been different, but I don't think Jeff Goldblum can act a bad role. Like even if he it is a bad role, he's not gonna be bad in it. But
he's well, also like that crazy mindset, like Jeff Goldblum, I feel like could bring that to the table. But Sarah made the comment, just like the crazy eyes that Doc Brown had, and I was like, you're only gonna get that with this. He's gonna get this for you, and that's about one of the only ones who will. Well, I mean, other people could, but he did an amazing job with it.
But sticking out, since that's kind of where we're talking about right now, sticking on that kind of theme of cast and characters. Let's talk about it. So I don't think there's really anyone in this movie that I feel like doesn't fit their character. I feel like casting was, well, like you said, like the production crew on the movie wanted Michael J. Fox for
the role.
For the role of Marty McFly. So the role of Marty McFly was kind of like tailored to him. Even though Eric Schultz was originally cast in that role, it was originally it was kind of tailored to him. So I feel like that's why it felt like such a perfect fit. But yeah, I don't think anyone else could have played Doc Brown the way Christopher Lloyd did.
No, he did. He did a really good job with that. And I think everyone. I'm not entirely sure how big everyone else was at the time. Obviously, Michael J. Fox was a rising, up and coming actor at that point, pretty big with Family Ties and all that. But I don't know necessarily how big mainstream most of the other actors were, but they were, they did a really good job in that role. And like we were talking last week about how, with Lord of the Rings, they were actors as opposed to them casting like the biggest names in Hollywood, And I feel like that was a very similar thing that they kind of did with this. Like, yes, they might have tailored the role for Michael J. Fox, who was a big name at that time, but I feel like the other ones were like, let's find the best actor that we can get for this role, and I think they did that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even still, like, Doc Brown and Marty are really the two big ones, because, like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, like, um, Marty's mom and dad, like, the younger ones do play a bigger role in the movie, so does
Mm-hmm.
younger Biff, but, they're
Yeah,
not really, they still don't really have the, like, same, like, screen time or, stuff that, Marty
yeah.
and Doc Brown do. So,
But even with that being said, like they do a good job being those like side characters, like
mm-hmm,
in the role. It's they do a really good job, and like they do a future version of themselves, and they do a younger or old and a younger version of themselves, and both are like believable.
mm-hmm,
Like you can kind of see the caked up makeup that they use on Lorraine McFly, whatever the actress's name is. But his mom, you can kind of see
mm-hmm,
that when you can see the caked up makeup that they have for her. But for the dad, like, I mean, he doesn't really get much face time with his older self, but he looks really good and convincing as like a 40-year-old man when they have him dressed up like that.
mm-hmm. But yeah, now, do you want to talk about some of the like actual characters real quick too? Because we really just been talking about casting right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, what do you think of Marty as a protagonist?
Hmm. I mean, like we were saying, like, you know, it he's your typical high schooler,
Mm-hmm.
like even at the beginning of the movie, he has one thing on his mind. He wants to go on that trip with his girlfriend, over the weekend, and it all gets wrecked up when Biff wrecks the car. And so, he's a typical high schooler. Like he's late for school because he's off goofing around with Doc Brown, and not really at that time, but he does that. He's, you know, like I don't know. There's not much like to not really like about him because you kind of look at the way that he's like structured as a character. Sure, he's played by Michael J. Fox, so he's a cooler guy, you know. But like he comes from a very uh lame family, I guess you could say. The ones that get bullied. And so he kind of gets lumped into that. So he's not like this guy who's strutting around, all cocky and confident. You know, he kind of has to more scrap for what he gets, kind of a deal. Like he's obviously tougher than his dad is. His dad's a wimp,
Mm-hmm.
and he's tougher than pretty much anyone else in his family. But that's also just kind of you can't really get that family, and he's definitely the um
Well,
what's it black duck black sheep of the
yeah.
family
But well, it's just
swan.
like yeah, I guess the typical like, well, I was about to say typical like '80s high school trope, but really it has existed, before and since then. But the typical thing is like the like nerdier, people in the
Mm,
class get bullied by the jocks. But
yeah,
Marty is kind of like, even though he is, I guess what you say, like one of the people who gets bullied, he is a skater, I guess. Not really a
yeah.
jock, but not really a nerd.
He's he, he's coordinated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also,
But that is one thing that I laughed at when we were watching the movie is when he's going to the school and Jennifer comes out and she says no, 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 don't go that way, the principal is going to see you, and they're sneaking in, and he stops them. It was really funny listening to the lines there because he was basically saying you're a slacker, just like your dad was a slacker, you'll never amount to anything, yada yada yada. And it's like, well, this is definitely an 80s movie because that's kind of like, how the characters are shaped, where they're like, there's, they're really, like you said, like they're the unpopular kid. They're the, this, that, the other thing. They're never going to amount to anything. And then throughout the movie, they show that that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which this one doesn't really come to that conclusion. It like kind of leaves that little bit of a thread hanging because obviously everything happens in the past. Like, so at the beginning of the movie, his band tries out for the thing or whatever it is. They get, they halfway through the song, their song gets shut down and they say get off the stage.
Mm-hmm.
The only callback to that is that he invents rock and roll, but besides that,
Also, hold up, real quick. I want to talk about this. How do you feel about the fact that in the um Back to the Future universe, Chuck Berry got the idea for Johnny Be Good from his cousin who just held up the phone.
yeah.
How do you feel
Um,
about that? Like,
yeah, I saw one thing where they were like talking about it, where says something about taking the accomplishments of a black man and giving it to a white guy.
mm,
you know, it's
mm.
like what you doing?
But
Here's the thing: if it can draw more people to that song, I'm okay with it
mm,
because But I don't know. I mean, I thought the performance in the thing was good,
mm.
but obviously it's like, should you really have done that?
Also the fact of like don't think about it too much because it becomes that thing of like, okay, so let's say if you're a fan of Beethoven, you go back in time
Uh huh.
and you know for some reason or another you don't end up meeting Beethoven, but you have all of his music, like hard copies of his music, and you release them all,
hmm
or you give him or you give Beethoven the copies of his work or whatever. Where
Yeah,
did they come from originally? But
it's a time loop. But
it's
that thought in mind, that thought in mind. So I had this thing brought up to me, which it sounds like it's gonna storm outside. I heard some thunder.
mm-hmm,
Anyways, I had never heard of this thought or had heard this thought before until I watched a little bit of a breakdown of the movie. But so when Marty comes back to the future, obviously the future has changed,
mm-hmm,
because of how he meddled with the past. But the events where Doc Brown gets shot and Marty jumps into some loud strikes of lightning. When Marty jumps in the car and all and drives off, that still happens in this timeline, right? But that Marty grew up in a different home than this Marty McFly did.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
So what events does he go and do? Like, is it all gonna work the same, or is he like, how does that all work out? It's don't think about it too hard. It's time travel, but it is a thought that I've never thought of. That it does, like, it's a different Marty jumping in that car. It's not the same Marty. Try and wrap your brain around that. I see you trying to, but
also I feel like that like if you think about it too much, that's the kind of event that could create a multiverse. Because you think about like,
yeah.
okay, so you have your original timeline here, then Marty went back in time and created a branch timeline, but then Marty number two from the branch timeline went back in time, and he might create another branch timeline, and yeah.
hmm Yeah. Also, I had never noticed. Well, I don't think I'd ever noticed it. It kind of seemed new to me when I heard it. But the mall is called Twin Pines Mall.
Mm,
But when he comes back, it's called Lone Pines Mall because he ran over the tree. I'd never noticed that before.
yeah.
I don't think. And that was an interesting thing, like the little changes that did happen, kind of hinting at the fact that later on things would have, panned out a little differently with his parents.
Yeah, and yeah, it is interesting, just like the thing, subtle things that they put into the movie to
hmm
like both foreshadowing and like the things of like letting you know things are different. Because that's like as soon as
Yeah.
Marty gets back to the future,
Yeah.
so that's kind of the first subtle nod that things are different.
Hmm.
So,
Um. So how much of this story do you want to get into? I mean, I guess we obviously have other characters to get around to, but how much of the story do you want to get into with it being a little interesting?
um, well, what's I feel like you want to talk about something specifically here.
No, no, you know what I'm not wanting to talk about. I'm asking if you want to talk about the main plot of the story. Why Marty has to get his parents back together.
Yeah, so we did just release the recap of this, but for the yeah, well, most people I'm assuming either watch that or already know the story of Back to the Future really well. But yeah, so basically he goes back in the past. The DeLorean lost power, can't time travel back to the future. So he goes into town and ends up preventing his well, okay, so basically his parents originally had met when Lorraine's dad hit what's his dad's name? What's Marty's dad's name?
George,
George, that's right. Yeah, when Lorraine's dad hit George with his car. But in
while he was bird watching,
yeah, he was kind of a creep. But
bit of a bit of a peeping tom there, you know.
yeah, but yeah, so anyway, instead of George getting hit with the car, Marty gets hit. So yeah,
Events play out.
yeah.
Let's just say his mom. I don't really know how to put this. That it doesn't sound weird. His mom really, really likes Marty. Not in the motherly kind of way. Anyway, so moving on.
Yeah.
I do want to make this comment because there was kind of a reason that I wanted to get around to this little bit of a prop thing. So at the after Marty essentially beats up Biff or whatever, crashes his car into a truck of manure. Um, Lorraine follows Marty back to Doc Brown's house, and then there asks him to the dance that is on that Saturday night or something. Which he says yes because he's going to use it to kind of get George and Lorraine back together, like they're supposed to be. Now, initially, the plan is that Marty's going to take advantage of Lorraine, and then George is going to beat him up for that. Um, so, anyways, when George gets out there, Biff is out there because I think my oh I'm having a little bit of a power issue. Um, anyways, Biff is out there, and then because he took Marty off. Um, so Biff actually takes advantage of Lorraine in this situation against Lorraine's wishes. We all know what that's called. Not gonna say it on here. Anyways, when Marty goes back to the future, who's out there buffing the car? Biff. Why are they keeping this guy around in their family's life? Why not just get rid of him?
Yeah, that is a very valid question.
Sarah mentioned that. And I never thought about it. She was like, "Why are they keeping this guy around after what he did to Lorraine?" And it's like, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of things in this movie that are best if you just don't overthink them. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut my unit off over here. It's causing some power pulls, and I don't know if the storm's having any problems with it. But 1 second.
Oh, he's gone, so now I can say stuff behind his back. Ah, da, 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 da. And so that's why Wesley is very stupid.
I heard the ending of your la 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 la. But Eddie, you're right. I am. That is why I'm very stupid because I hang out with you most of the time. Anyways, well though, here's a thought though for you with the things you're talking about. How there's some things in the movie that are best left not thought about. One being basically the main premise of the movie, where his mom is kind of hitting on him. Anyways, so where was I going with this? There needs to be a point somewhere. Oh, that's what it was. So, from what I heard, when this movie was being pitched to different movie studios, a bunch of the movie studios were like, "This movie is not like," um, they were saying it wasn't dirty enough, and I guess that was something that they like movies. They liked movies being more on the dirty side of things. Um, Whereas when they took the idea to Disney, Disney said, "This is way too dirty. We will not produce this." Which, for once, Disney was actually right. Anyways, but then I guess Universal picked it up, and the rest is history.
Hmm. Now,
But I did think that was funny. Is like, if some studios thought it wasn't dirty enough, with everything in the movie.
yeah, um, yeah. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is the car.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, like the DeLoreans are still super popular to this day, just because of Back to the Future. I mean, that and let's face it, the DeLoreans are still a really cool car.
Yeah.
But one kind of common misconception about DeLoreans is the fact that most people think that they can't actually hit 88 miles per hour.
Well, the dash or something. There's the thing is, it only goes up to like
Okay,
85 because they did
so
have to modify the DeLoreans
yes,
and this to go up to like what 90 or 95,
yeah,
something like
I
that.
was getting to that. So back in the
Okay, my
80s,
bad.
when they were making cars, the government had put in some stuff to where basically they were trying to prevent as much speeding. So they passed a law where speedometers could only go up to 85 miles per hour. In the movie, they switched the 85 mile per hour speedometer out for a 95 mile per hour speedometer, just so they could hit 88 miles per hour. But the
Mm-hmm.
a DeLorean, even though the stock speedometer can only go up to 88 or 85 miles per hour, I think the top speed is like almost 130. Now, I wouldn't push your DeLorean to that if you have one, but yeah, I mean like
Let's go get one, David. Let's burn it up.
but yeah, like they can comfortably go like highway speeds and stuff without any issue. So you know, just because the speedometer maxes out at 85 miles per hour doesn't mean that that's the top speed the DeLorean can go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did see one thing though. There was apparently a really, really big fan of the Back to the Future who went to the real life spot of Twin Pines Mall
Mm-hmm.
and said that you cannot reach 88 miles an hour in that parking lot. So
You just got to be really good at driving.
apparently he wasn't good enough,
Oh,
or
here,
she
here,
wasn't good enough.
here.
I don't
Let
know.
me see. Let me see what
While you're doing whatever you're doing, um, there was a thing that I saw, and I wanted to mention it. So, when Marty goes in the past, he's talking to Doc Brown, and Doc Brown's like, "All right, well, if you're really from the future, who is the president in 1985?" And he says Ronald Reagan, and he's like, "Ronald Reagan, the actor?" Which, when he first gets to the town, you see the movie theater, they're saying whatever the title of the movie is, starring so and so and Ronald Reagan, which I thought was a kind of a cool nod to that being a
Mm.
a thing picked up a little bit later. But apparently Ronald Reagan loved Back to the Future.
Mm.
He was a huge fan. And apparently, he even he in one of his addresses he quoted Back to the Future, but he was asked if they would be okay with him them putting that line in the movie, and he was like, "Yes, go for it." And so yeah, he's a huge fan of Back to
Now,
the Future.
okay, so what I was looking at was a DeLorean. Now, still, the parking lot might not have the space to be able to do this, but I was looking at the 0 to 60 on a DeLorean. So I got several estimates. So let's see. I have them ranging from 3 seconds to 8.5 seconds.
Well,
So
this also is another thing. I'm not entirely sure because I don't have it right in front of me, and I don't remember. I don't know if this person who went to try this out in the mall parking lot was in a DeLorean or not. You
mm,
think if they're that big of a Back to the Future fan that they probably should be in one, but I don't know.
mm.
But continue.
So yeah, to get to 88 miles per hour, it'd be anywhere from like 4.5 seconds to 13, 14 seconds. If
Mm.
you're flooring it in a like mint condition DeLorean.
Yeah. So who knows? You know, that plutonium in the back, that might have just shot it up a
Hey,
little bit
who
more.
knows?
You never know. Speaking of the DeLorean, since we're on that topic, um, so when he gets back into the past, um, the car stops. Like it doesn't, well, after he cuts it off, it stops working. You know, it won't turn over. And he says something about maybe the starter's not, it's not starting or something with the starter. Possibly, we find out later there's probably something wrong with the fuel. All right, that's all well and good. He hides it, you know, nothing wrong there. They get it back to the doc's shop, they tow it there. He's working on it. How does the car start when they're running it down to hit the wire so that the lightning can strike and get the 1.21 gigawatts? They say gigawatts. I think it's actually technically supposed to be gigawatts, which they mispronounced it in their.
Yeah,
I'll get to that in a second.
Doc Brown says gigawatts, but the correct
Giga.
turn is giga.
When they were doing their research on it, apparently they didn't either understand the guy they were talking to, like they misunderstood what he was saying, or he misspoke. But either way, when they were doing it, they heard gigawatts or gigawatts, and so that's what ended up sticking in the movie. But anyways, but how did they get the car to go so it could hit the wire and get the 1.21 gigawatts into the car?
Mm-hmm.
I guess they said it was electric. Is that the answer? It seemed like it was a little bit of a, you know,
Maybe I don't know. Okay,
he
but
even gets in the car. He even gets in the car and it still has a problem
mm,
going. Um,
okay, so I just did my some calculations for that for how much space you would need to hit 88 miles per hour in a DeLorean. The most space you would need is 1,806 feet. Rounded up, call it 7 feet. So, uh, 18 or 1,807 feet is the max you would need. Um, you could probably do that in
so
less, but that's
what's the average size of a mall parking lot?
that's a good question. That's probably a small mall. So I don't know if the parking lot would be that big.
Yeah.
Or should let me redo this. Hold up.
Oh, hey, we can actually look up. We can probably actually even look up what the mall was because it was a real mall they used. Um, I'm sorry for the silence. Okay, so uh Punette Hills Mall. Let's see if we can find out how big the parking lot is. Yeet. I don't know how to pronounce this. No, go away. Okay, I had it backwards. Okay.
So it would probably.
P-N-E-T-I-E-R.
I just did a more accurate calculation. It'd probably be more closer to 1,000 feet is what you need. So when I had done the calculation earlier, I based that off of 88 miles per hour in 14 seconds. But I did 44
Mm-hmm.
miles per hour in 18 seconds because that's the median speed. So that should be more accurate. And I rounded
Uh,
up because it's like 903.4. So I'm just gonna round it up to 1,000 just for error, room for error. So I would say 1,000 to 1,800 feet is how much you'd need to get a DeLorean up to
okay.
88 miles per hour.
So let's see. So they'd only be working in one of these tiny little strips here, and I have no way of measuring this at this time. Um, because I did find the actual mall, but I don't know how to measure that. I don't have the resources at this moment in time. So
Mm-hmm.
that's fun. We cannot see if it would actually work or not. Well, we could, we just can't do it right now. Or we could, but it wouldn't be that
Well,
interesting
here,
of a podcast.
let's see. What's the address for that mall?
I can get it. If you just look up I think it's Punette. I don't know. Let's see. Where's the address? Where does it say? Address. Let's see. This says 1500 Albatross Road, Albatross Road. That's what I'm
Well,
saying
here.
as
Let me
far as
just
the name. Hmm. Called like Punette. I think it's Punette, but it's Puente Hills Mall. So
mm,
that was what I found as
my
far as what
computer
the
is
name of
being
the
slow,
actual.
so let me see if I can actually. Um,
Well, what were you gonna do? You got too much running on your one thing.
yes, I do.
You know, I realized the other day how long we've had these computers, and it is a atrocity.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've had them what since at least 2020. Did we get them in 2019?
Um,
Uh,
yes, yes, I think so. But yeah, yeah, mine. I need to get like a little like mini PC just for doing the recording the podcast.
mm,
All right, let me see if it'll work on my phone.
what you trying to do?
Measure the size of the parking lot.
How you gonna do that?
I don't know if there's a way to do that on the mobile version of Google Maps, but I'll see.
Let's see.
All right, here we go. Punet
I think
Hills
I might have
Mall.
found something here.
All right, so let's see. I think it's from this here.
This is probably really boring. A lot of people probably going to be like, I'm out.
Okay, well,
And
I
it
am
probably is
trying
good.
to do this the right way. All right. All right. So if all
Well, I found something here. Go ahead.
right, so if you can get up to 88 miles per hour in only using 1,000 feet, you can do it.
Oh, I
You'll
have a thing here saying that you can't, but go ahead and tell me why.
okay. I was just looking at this, and it said it's like point 0.2 miles across and some change. So and
Okay.
the calculation I had
Is
before
that
was
like a
like
strip?
0.17. So I one of my calculations may have been off, and that might be what's throwing that
Well,
off. But
here's some things. Here's some things here. So, in a heavy math heavy post about the problem, uh, Bullet Ride traces the DeLorean's path over the map of the parking lot where the scene was shot back in the 1980s, and then calculates how fast the car would be traveling based on. I'd like to find that article. I might be able to. That
see,
might be a link, so I might
yes,
click on
that's
that.
the one thing I did.
Um,
See, that's the one thing I
well, I'll look
didn't.
at that in a second. But
But that's the one thing I
okay,
didn't
so
do
in
is I didn't measure
yeah,
from the actual starting point in the movie. I measured from end to end of the parking lot. So from end to end of the
yeah. So it's
parking
more
lot,
of
from end to end
so
of the
that
parking
might be
lot,
a
you
thing
do
where
yeah. From end to end of the parking lot, you do
do
have
it.
enough space. But they were in the middle of the parking lot, so yeah.
Yeah. Um, the conclusion's no way. So what he says, according to the Wikipedia, DeLorean can go 0 to 60 in 8.8 seconds. To
Mm-hmm.
keep things simple, I assume this is him quoting him. To keep things simple, I assume a consistent acceleration up to 60 miles an hour. This is a reasonable assumption. Above 60, drag typically starts to take hold and acceleration starts to decrease. So if anything, it's an optimistic assumption. I also ignore the fact that the parking lot in the movie was wet and that the car would likely have been slower with the added weight from the equipment Doc added to it. And yes, I'm also assuming that Doc hasn't done anything to improve the the acceleration performance of the DeLorean. So basically, he's saying with all those things and the path that it was taking, that they wouldn't have reached.
Mm-hmm.
DeLorean would have reached only about 70 miles an hour in that span,
Yeah. See,
is what he's saying.
I did not
So,
take into account any of the extra variables. Well, no, he said he didn't take into account a lot of them,
yeah.
but like he was talking about the consistent acceleration, and
Oh, like,
that's what I had done was consistent acceleration, but I didn't take into account
mm,
the drag from once you get past 60 miles per hour. So I would trust that one more so than my calculations, just because he took into account more variables. But yeah.
mm. Yes, and see, it would be something cool to look into. I clicked on the thing and it did not. It said like it was a 404. So what apparently the site's been taken down or something like that. I don't know, but I can't find it. Um, um. So, anyways, I do want to make a comment completely off topic of this, but we can still stick on the idea of a DeLorean. So, in the movie, obviously, the DeLorean is the time machine.
Mm-hmm.
In the original script of it, they were going to use a refrigerator, but decided against it because they were like, we don't want to, get in kids' minds that, they can go into a refrigerator and time travel and they get stuck in refrigerators. Because there's going to be like an old timey refrigerator. Um, Steven Spielberg directed this. he also directed Crystal Skull, which in that movie, Harrison Ford climbs into a refrigerator to escape a nuclear blast. And I think there are some problems at that point in time. Well, I guess not, because that would have been in 2008. Never mind. But anyways, so I wonder if any kids, obviously you do that, that's a bad idea because you get into a fridge, you might not be able to get out. Nowadays they're built for kids to get in essentially because they can be opened up from the inside. But that was the original thought that they didn't want to do that, and then a couple years later he does that with another one of his movies. So
Also, why can't I see Doc Brown making a refrigerator into a time machine?
it's really not that far fetched. Honestly, it's a little more far fetched to use the DeLorean.
Mm-hmm. Like that, I love. And we didn't get it. We didn't talk about Doc Brown earlier. We talked about Marty, but we didn't talk about Doc Brown. But
You know about him?
yeah,
Go
I,
for it.
I
Start
love
us
I
off.
love that opening scene when Marty goes to his shop or to his lab or whatever he calls it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you with all the clocks. Doc
Yeah.
Brown's on the phone. He's just like, it worked. They're exactly like what do you say? What was it like? However many.
25 minutes off or something like that.
Yeah. Also, the like incredibly specific numbers in this movie are
Mm-hmm.
hilarious. Like 88 miles per hour. Like what?
Random number
Yeah.
that literally has like that I looked into it. It has literally no significance,
Mm, yeah.
none
And,
whatsoever.
and and there's a lot of those. Yeah. Like,
One point
but
21 gigawatts.
but one thing I also like about the clock thing in the beginning is Marty acts like the clock's being behind make him late for school, even though he's wearing a watch in that scene.
Well, Marty's not the brightest because he keeps skipping school.
True, true. Stay
He
in
might.
school.
Well, I would. You could say he's hanging out with the scientist, which means that he's should be smarter. But Doc even makes a statement back in 1955. He's like, "I'll finally make something that works," because none of his inventions seemingly really work. You know, he's a Doofenshmirtz. Actually, no, Doofenshmirtz's stuff worked. Um, he goes and sticks the thing on Marty's forehead, and he's like, "You know what that means? It means this thing does not work." It's like he may
Hmm.
not be as smart as he comes across. He may not be as smart as his hair tells you he is.
I also love the way he came up with the idea for the flux capacitor.
You're talking about hitting his head on the toilet or
He,
the sink, I guess.
no, I think it was the toilet, wasn't it?
I don't know. It was something ceramic or something like that in the
He fell in the bathroom and hit his
bathroom.
head, and
Yeah,
then drew a picture of the flux capacitor.
yeah,
I
and invents time travel.
Yeah. Wait,
That's that is
you mean that's all you gotta do is just head trauma in the bathroom and you can invent time travel?
David. I would love to slam your head against things in the bathroom. I'll even bring the paper so you can draw on it.
What, with my own blood?
Sure. I don't really care how you do it.
Now, okay.
Is bang. This bang. Working bang.
Okay,
David.
okay, okay, okay.
No.
Now, another thing too is you're supposed to be hitting my head on things, not pushing my head through things. So, you
Well, if your head is hard enough to go through some of the things in the bathroom, I don't think that's my fault. Because here's the thing, if you fall in the bathroom and your head goes through something, you could still technically come up with time travel. It's the head trauma part.
True, true.
Get a sledgehammer.
What?
He said, I'll get a sledgehammer. We'll make a lot of trauma.
We want like the whole point of this is so there's still something left to come up with an idea.
David, there's nothing left in there to begin with, let alone after I smash it.
Yeah, you're right. It's already mush up there.
Yeah, you know those little the Easter bunnies you get for Easter, and they're the chocolate bunnies. That's what
Mm-hmm.
it's called. The chocolate bunnies you get for Easter. That's the right way to say what I was trying to say. And you bite into it thinking it's gonna be solid chocolate, and it just caves in. That's your head, except it doesn't taste nearly as good as chocolate. No, you shouldn't be offended by that. I don't know why you would be.
I'm not offended. I'm just
You
wondering why. I'm
smell.
just wondering how you know this. Don't answer that.
I I I have my ways
Don't answer that.
of knowing whatever I care to know.
Don't answer that.
What if I want to?
Just don't.
All right. Anyways, moving on to anything else that we could possibly talk about besides banging your head into things. I don't want to be on record saying that I'm gonna do it because when I do it, I don't need the, you know, uh, audio evidence or video evidence or
Oh, well,
whatever.
I
I
already
guess it'd
got
be
that.
audio evidence of me confessing of me doing it.
We were talking about Doc Brown.
Great character, very very well played.
Mm-hmm. Is that all you got?
I never really Yeah, I never really thought about how rich he was, though. Like he said he spent his family fortune on, yada yada yada. But I never really caught on to that aspect of it. And when Marty pulls up to the house, in 1955, it's a nice big house, like it's a mansion. And I was like, huh, that makes sense now. I never really thought about it.
He's kind of like like the Doctor Doofenshmirtz kind of character. Like he spends all his money on stuff, but I guess I did kind of explain where it came from.
Most
But yeah,
most people do spend all their money on stuff, David.
not the way Doc Brown does.
It's just different kind of stuff.
Okay, I've never bought plutonium, so
I don't think he bought it either.
true.
He uh he received it.
Received, bought, stole. It's all the same thing.
One involves money, but so whatever ended up happening to the terrorists though, because even when he comes back, you see that they crash into the kiosk outside thingamabobber. Um, but like, are they just knocked out? Are they going to be concerned when they go over there and they find out that Doc Brown's no longer laying there? Is he good now? I mean, what ends up happening with that? Did they die in the crash?
Not specified.
I want to know, David. I need to know these things. Come up with an answer that satisfies me.
Well, okay, so after so when they hit the
I already
kiosk,
know I don't like it.
when they hit the
I already don't
kiosk,
like it.
they all get knocked out,
Yeah, I remember that.
unconscious, and then when Doc Brown and Marty
They
left,
developed
and then
amnesia and they forgot that they were terrorists and now they're stand-up citizens.
exactly,
What were you gonna say?
I like yours better. No, no, no. Wait, hold up. Wait,
No,
no, no, no.
I want to know what you were gonna say.
Oh, I was just gonna say the cops picked them up, but but no. So they had got
Wow.
amnesia, and they decided to start a sketch comedy group. And so now they're performing sketch comedy around the country.
That's the lamest excuse for an idea I've ever heard of. No wonder your head's full of mush.
Well, yours is full of nothing.
I came up with a better idea than you did.
At least mine sloshes around when I shake my head.
Well, don't slosh too hard; it might come out your ears.
Oh, is that what those are for?
I'm not entirely sure. I've never used mine before.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
know
am,
you.
after all, a man.
Yeah, I know you just talk all the time.
I try.
You try what?
I try. Things.
Oh,
Um.
okay.
Anyways, so do we have anything else to say about Back to the Future? I'm sure there are things to say, but I feel like we're just. I don't know why. My brain is definitely fried. I was working outside today and it was extremely hot. So my brain is more than fried. You seem like you might be a little fried too. So I don't know if you've hit your head or what's happening with you, but
Actually, I
we just
did.
seem to be kind of all over the place.
Actually, I did hit my head earlier today. So maybe that's part of
How'd you go about doing that?
it. Okay. Let's move
David,
on.
do you know who you are?
Let's
Do
go
you know
to.
who I am? I don't remember listening to the intro when you said it. Did you say that? Did you say "Welcome back"? I'm David and that's Wesley. Or did you say "Welcome back"? I'm somebody and that's somebody else.
I can't remember. I honestly can't remember what I said. But no. Let's move on to what's new with
We're
you,
in
and
trouble.
then I'll tell you that story.
All right.
Just
Okay, let's go to what's new with you.
roll the transition.
What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? Yeah!
All right, David. Now I need to know what the story is. We went to a new segment to hear it.
Okay, so I just started a new job, and
Hey,
well, oh yeah, I forgot I hadn't told you yet.
I know I don't know anything about you. So that's the thing is like people ask me, they'd be like, "What's up with David? You know, how's this going on in his life? How's that going on in his life?" I'm like, "I don't know. We don't talk about any of that stuff. We don't
Yeah,
talk about life."
yeah, that's not important. Anyway, um, but yeah, I started a new job today. So I'm working at a my sister-in-law actually got me a job on at a Cracker Barrel, and so I'm
Cool.
yeah, and so I'm a
You a cook or a waiter?
waiter. But anyway, so I was
Okay.
in the line there, you working on getting some I think I was making drinks, and I had turned to go grab something, and so I was standing right next to where the like to go orders and stuff are put together, and there's a screen there for the
Mm.
it's got all the active to go orders, and I turn and immediately hit my head on that screen. It hits me right there on the forehead.
Yeah, you'll find very quickly, David, that any kind of food industry is not built for tall people.
Mm-hmm.
I have hit my head many a time
Oh, and I've already gotten the
on many a thing that I should not have.
yeah, and I've already gotten the oh hey, you're tall, can you grab this for me?
Yes, yes.
Which actually reminds me,
So did you come up with time travel?
I don't think so. Wait, what day is it? What year is it?
Well, then what? Then then what even is the point of you, David?
Wait,
Come up with time
wait.
travel already.
What year is it?
I don't know.
Well, neither do I. So
2015.
it worked.
We have hoverboards. Oh, we went back in time and started a podcast. It's no longer episode 25. It's episode 1. I am kind of baffled at how all over the place and crazy this episode is like just
I don't.
turning out to be.
Okay, I don't know what's with
I don't know
I
what's
don't know what's
happening,
with us
but
tonight. Like it's just yeah,
if it
it's
works,
bad.
let's just fry our brains every time.
It's just bad tonight. But
It is, yeah.
but that actually
Oof.
telling, mentioning that, but like people just saying, using me for, being tall. Um,
Mm-hmm.
back when I
That's
was
all you're
work,
good for.
yeah, back when I was working retail, I had one of my coworkers. She would always like whenever she needed something, something like that something was high up on a shelf or something that she needed, grabbed or whatever, and I was there. She was always like, "Hey, David, you're tall." I'm just like, "Yes, I realize that," but I just think it's funny.
How observant.
I just think it's funny. That's how she would
So
always, ask me for things like that.
so quick side note here. I don't know if you can hear it in the background or not, but it is raining pretty heavily outside, so that might get picked up. Hopefully, it's not too loud or distracting.
That was actually not that bad.
Okay, cool. It's really loud here, but you know what? It will be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, but that's cool. That's cool, David. That's cool that you're tall. But moving on because nobody cares. Um,
Let's face it. Nobody cares about any of this.
no, nobody does. This is our segment for us to catch up.
Yeah.
So because we don't do it enough, obviously. Uh, hey, one thing I didn't mention last week, but I did text you about, um, is so I've been playing through Fallen Order recently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I figured out why I was having so much trouble with it. I was on Jedi Master instead of story mode. So there's four modes for it. There's story mode, Jedi Knight, Jedi Master, and Grand Jedi Master. I was on Jedi Master.
So what you're
That's why I died so much.
so what you're telling me is that you don't actually suck.
I don't know if that's actually true. I haven't died since I changed it. Actually, everything is like extremely easy, and I progressed a lot farther in the story now. Um, but and I'm about to have a week off. We're going down to Florida, and so I'm probably going to be actually when this comes out, I will be in Florida. But I'm going to take the Xbox, and I'm going to very very strongly attempt. Is that the right way? I don't know. I'm going to attempt to beat Fallen Order while I'm down
Mm.
there because I'll have time to.
So
But yeah, the game is so much more fun when I'm out dying all the time.
so where are you at in the story now?
Where did I go? I'm on what was that planet I said I was stuck on with the walker?
That
That was
that is Zepho.
Ze- yeah, I'm back on Zepho. I
Okay.
went from Kashyyyk back to Zepho and I made my way back to the wait, no, I'm back on Kashyyyk. I went
Oh,
to
okay.
Zepho and then after that I
Oh,
went back to Kashyyyk. So I'm back on
so
Kashyyyk right now. I
so
just faced the Night Sister, I think it is.
oh yeah, okay, yeah. I was gonna say that like the second time you go back to the Kashyyyk and you climb the big tree and you fight the Ninth Sister on top of
Mm-hmm.
the tree. That is one of my favorite levels in Fallen Order.
Yeah, that was fun.
I do really like Dathomir though, which I think you're coming up on.
I hope. Well, that's one that I've had my eye on. Dathomir,
Mm.
just because of how cool it is. Like in the Clone Wars, they go. I think they go to Dathomir, right? That's the Night Sisters world.
Yes.
So, just how cool it looks from the little bit I've seen, I'm ready to go to Dathomir.
Mm.
But I don't know. I really like have enjoyed at least the last like couple times I've played Fallen Order because I haven't died as much. But even outside of that, like the whole entire overarching like gameplay and story has is like really fun, and being able to go to all these different worlds is pretty cool, and kind of seeing them a little bit
Mm.
differently. Like we've seen Kashyyyk before, but we've never seen it like this before.
Yeah. Well, and actually, that's one thing I do like too, because you get to actually see Kashyyyk more, because really all we get in the
Mhm.
movies is those couple scenes in Revenge of the Sith, and then we get some
Yeah.
more in we get some in Clone Wars, and I think there's some
Yeah.
in Rebels too.
think so. It's been a while since I've seen Rebels,
I could be
which I probably
misremembering that,
should
but
catch on. Yeah, I
yeah,
probably should catch up on that, which I won't, but I should for watching Ahsoka. But
which actually comes out.
anyways,
I think Ahsoka, the first episode of Ahsoka comes out the
the
same.
23rd, right?
Yeah, I was about to say it comes out
Oh, it is. Just
the same week
same week.
this episode comes out.
Yeah, it
I
should
think
come
Ahsoka's
out. I
coming out on
think
Wednesday. Yep.
Wednesday, because yeah, Disney Plus is usually Wednesday. So I'm going to. I haven't even finished all of Mandalorian. So I'm going to be finishing that. I'm going to be finishing Andor, and I'm going to definitely be watching the first. Is it 2 episode release that they're doing, or just one?
I'm not sure.
I thought I saw they were doing two, but whatever is put out week one, I'm definitely going to watch that.
They
I'm gonna
might be
look it
doing
up real
two
quick.
episode release, but
Release date. Okay. Um. Well, this isn't helpful because I'm not looking up the right thing. Uh, it's only going to be 8 episodes, so do they really want to release two as like a premiere and then only have 6 more weeks?
I don't know. They might.
They might. I don't know. I guess it'll. But I'm really excited for this because, I mean, in the Clone Wars, Ahsoka was always a really cool character. Um, they did a really good job with her, and it was nice to see her in Mandalorian, or was that Boba Fett, whichever one it was. In the more recent live action that they done, it
I
was
think it was
cool
in
to see
both.
her in Rebels. A
Hmm.
little bit both. It was cool to see her in Rebels too. Hopefully, like I understand all she's been through and all, but I kind of hope that. And this is not an original thought with me, but when I heard it, I was like, I kind of agree with that. But I kind of hope she gets back to some of the character traits she had in Clone Wars because she was so stoic in Rebels and in The Mandalorian / Boba Fett when she appeared there. So I kind of hope that she kind of gets back to her, you know, less stoic side, more loose, a little bit more funny, a little bit more, and obviously it's going to be a little bit different. She is older at this point in time. Um,
Now, okay, so
but, it would be nice to
I
see a
also
little bit more, you know, what the character was. But anyways, go ahead.
I also really want to see them do a flashback with Clone Wars Anakin. So actually have Hayden Christensen in the actual Clone Wars costuming. So the
Yeah.
clone pauldrons and gauntlets and his actual the darker robes that he wore in Clone Wars. And
Yeah.
actually do some de aging and like what they did in Kenobi. And then I would love to see Ashley Eckstein actually play young Ahsoka. I know she hasn't.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I don't. She's just a voice actor. I don't think she's done any live action acting, but I know she's
Mm.
also very like. She's kind of smaller framed and stuff, so I feel like she could pull off playing a live action Ahsoka, or younger live action Ahsoka.
Mm.
And obviously, they don't really need to worry
Yeah.
about de aging or anything because with all that makeup, there's they can make her look however old they want her to.
Yeah. That would be cool. I do hope to see some flashbacks. I haven't kept up to date with really much of this the stuff with the show. I think I've seen part of a trailer or maybe the trailer or one of the trailers they released a while back. I've been mostly like I've been waiting for it to come out, but I also haven't been like, keeping my ear to the ground to see all the different details with it. But I hope Hayden Christensen shows up in it. I don't know if there's rumors or fact that he's going to be in it or not. But I hope he shows up. Um, I am excited to see Thrawn as a
Mm-hmm.
villain appearing in this. And I hope that that goes well. Who's directing this? Is this
I think it's Filoni.
what's his name? Filoni. It
Yeah,
is
I think
okay.
it's Filoni.
if he's doing it, it should be good. But you know, we'll see how this all goes. Um, I do have a thought for you. It was a thought posed to me, and now I want to ask you about this.
Okay.
Um, so back in Rebels, and this is on the thought of Ahsoka. When they go to the realm between realms or whatever it's called. What's that called?
The I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
Yeah. So that introduces some form of time travel in Star Wars. Do you think at any point in time they're going to bring that in and start doing time travel in Star Wars and possibly reboot the franchise through that?
I hope not.
And if so, how outraged would you be? I would
I
hate Disney
hope
for that.
not. I hope they don't do that. Okay, now
I heard that on a podcast I was listening to, and it was like, God, if they do that, that is just gonna trash Star Wars. So, because sure, they might be able to
well,
remake a bunch of the old movies, but I
well,
don't want them to remake A New Hope,
what
remake
podcast were you listening to on that?
Rebel Force Radio.
Oh, okay, were they talking about it as something that they would like to see, or something that just Disney might do?
No, it was they were just talking about. They brought that up,
Like a
and I
hypothetical.
think
They were
someone was
like,
like, "Well, what if they ended up doing this?" Yeah, it wasn't really like, "Hey, we would like to see this." It was more
okay, so
like, this could be something to be done.
the only way I could be somewhat okay with that is if they do what they did with Star Trek, where it's a separate timeline.
Hmm.
So you have two
That's
timelines running.
what they mentioned.
But the main Star Wars timeline is still what they put their most focus on. I would be
Yeah.
more okay with that. I still don't know how I would feel about that, but yeah, if they did that and tried to actually reboot the franchise, no, I would absolutely hate that.
It's like I don't know if you can get any Star Wars fan on board with you retconning, essentially with the canon line, retconning A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and even for people who hate the prequels, you're probably not going to get them to want to, X out that either,
Mm.
Now, you can completely X out the sequels. I will be more than okay with that. Most Star Wars fans are, well, most Star Wars fans who don't like that have already
Now,
decanonized that, but,
now one thing I've heard that now this just kind of seems like a hopeful thing. I think it was Star Wars Theory that I heard on YouTube. That I heard talking about this, but
okay.
he was talking about maybe doing a thing where like with the he was actually talking about like the Ahsoka show, like when it was first announced like 3 or 4 years ago. He was talking about wondering if
Mm-hmm.
Dave Filoni was going to try to use what you're talking about, the like World Between Worlds or whatever it's called, to retcon the sequels and put them in a separate
Mm-hmm.
timeline from the Prime timeline. I don't know if that's
See,
actually.
I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that, like I was saying, and especially if they were to do it where they really focused on Thrawn, and Thrawn was the villain that came in after the
Mm,
Empire instead of the First Order.
like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing that either, but I don't think Disney's gonna let that happen.
Take out Kathleen Kennedy and put in Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau, either one of them.
Yeah. I don't know, and obviously I don't know enough about either one of them, but I feel like from what I've heard from Dave Filoni, I feel like he wouldn't be willing or he wouldn't want to step into that position like that because he
Okay,
feel like he wouldn't be qualified enough. But I think at least Jon Favreau would be more than qualified for a position like that and would do a good job.
see, I feel like what if they wanted to put them into leadership roles in Lucasfilm, Jon Favreau
Mm-hmm.
would be the obvious choice for president because he's an executive producer on a lot of other stuff. He's been a director for years. Um,
Yeah.
he knows the movie business and he knows Star Wars. So I feel like he would be a
Mhm.
good for that. And I think Dave Filoni should be more put into a like creative lead position inside of Lucasfilm.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
Lucasfilm, please listen.
But
Do something right for once, Disney.
I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is going to lose her job anytime soon.
Kathleen Kennedy has way too much pull over way too many people in the movie industry. She's been around for way too long, and from what most people see, she's done a really good job. Which I'm not going to say she's not good at her job. I'm just saying she sucks at running Lucasfilm.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like I said on last week's podcast with Ryan Johnson. Like, yes, you can have some really good
Mm,
creative minds in the movie industry, but they suck at making Star Wars. You know?
yeah. That's the thing is like, and I think even when it came around to making Acolyte, the TV show that's supposed to come out at some point in the future, God only knows when, because Lucasfilm keeps announcing things and then keeps canceling things. But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, with that show, someone was talking about how they were bringing in people who weren't even Star Wars fans to work on it because they wanted to see things from a different point of view. And it's like, no, you don't want to see things from a different. You want Star Wars fans to work on Star Wars films so that Star Wars remains Star Wars. If you bring something else in, it's no longer Star Wars. Why do you think the sequels have? The sequels have failed because you brought in people who weren't going to keep Star Wars Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. And you
They
can
read a
get
couple comics, and that was it.
people who are fans of Star Wars into with a bunch of different viewpoints on different plot lines and stuff.
Yeah,
There are people who still hate the prequels. There are people who love the prequels. The sequels again have mixed reception among real Star Wars fans. So there are different opinions inside of the Star Wars fan base. So if you want a different opinion, you can find a Star Wars fan
yeah.
that's going to give you a different opinion. you know.
But you need to keep it within Star Wars because if you're not doing that, you're gonna get all these. You're gonna get the Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't know. And the thing is like me as a Star Wars fan, I listen to different Star Wars podcasts. Like you said, Star Wars Theory. I listen to him. Rebel Force Radio. I listen to that. There's other, I listen to those, and they're talk about all these people in the movie industry who just don't know how to make Star Wars. And it's like the fans are crying out that you're doing a trash job, and we're telling you how to do a good job. Just listen,
Also,
and everything will work out.
kind of on a side note here, how do we always end
Uh-huh.
up talking about Star Wars?
Well, it's typically in the life of, well, at least me. But
But
I don't
like,
know. I like bringing it up.
I don't.
I'm not gonna lie. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I have been so like I've been into Star Wars most of my life, and there was a time that I knew more about Star Wars than I even do now.
Mm,
But like outside of that, when our first podcast episode, which I think we do need to get around to top the fact that this is our 25th. I think you said you had some stuff to say
mm,
about that. But from our first episode, which was um us talking about Star Wars, I really dove into it after that, and I have
mm-hmm.
been like high on Star Wars since.
Well, okay,
So
okay, and
I don't know why it keeps being brought up, but
let's face it. Like, okay, so originally we didn't really want to commit to being a movie podcast. That's kind of what we become.
mhm.
But I think we also need to accept the fact that we really are a Star Wars podcast that talk about other movies.
Yeah, little variety, but we're a very big Star Wars. Well, I think the thing is too is like okay, so last week we talked about Lord of the Rings. You are really into Lord of the Rings.
Mm,
I'm into Lord of the Rings, but you are like obsessed with Lord of the Rings. I'm not to your level, so we can't make a Lord of the Rings podcast. We both like Marvel, we both like DC, but I don't think we care to dive enough into most of the superhero stuff to really make a full podcast about that. Star Wars is something that you and I both really like
mm-hmm.
and are really into that we still care about,
Yeah,
which is kind of why we talk about it a lot.
yeah.
So,
But
yeah, it's kind of where we're at.
But going back to, you mentioned it's our 25th episode. So I do want to go over some stats from just the past, which actually the past 25 episodes, because I'm going to include the pilot in that. So including the pilot, we have already recorded 25 episodes, but this is our official 25th episode.
And we've never recorded a trailer.
No, we still need to do that. Okay, so
We can do that next week. I have more time.
okay, so our stats. So,
Woohoo!
all right, so I might try, see if you can guess some of these real quick, but first I want to go over. Okay, so if you wanted to listen to, not including this one, because obviously I don't have the actual time for this one, but if you wanted to listen to the pilot plus the first 24 episodes of the podcast, it would take you 36 hours, 54 minutes, and 2 seconds.
Wow, who would want to waste that much time?
Now, if you wanted to listen to all of our podcasts about Star Wars, that would take you 9 hours, 51 minutes, and 13 seconds.
Now, are we talking about all the times you mentioned Star Wars, or all the specific Star Wars ones?
No, that's just the
Okay.
specific episodes about Star Wars, but we talk about Star Wars a lot. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's probably at least 12
That'd
hours
be some more
from Star Wars.
calculations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to go
But
in
you
and
have to dig
calculate
through
all
it.
that out yet. Yeah. Okay,
You'd have to dig through it, and anyone listening to it would have to dig through it.
So, what episode do you think is our longest episode?
Ooh. I gotta think about all the different episodes that we've done. So I know we spent 2 hours talking about Community. I know last week's episode was 2 hours. I'm trying to think of what the first one that we did was 2 hour long, because I think that one was like a little over 2 hours, like maybe close to 2.5 hours. But I can't think about which one it was. Can you give me a hint of what genre it was?
Okay, so the three that have broken 2 hours are The Lord of the Rings, which is last week's. That was episode 24, and then episode 21, which was Community, and episode 17, which was The Flash.
That one was the longest one, wasn't it?
No, actually. The
Was it
longest
the Lord
one,
of the Rings one?
the longest one we've done was the
Don't
Lord
tell
of
me
the
it
Rings.
was a commute. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It was? Okay.
It was Lord of the
I
Rings.
do remember it being a little bit longer, but
Mhm.
all right, so we're getting longer.
Yep.
That's good for anyone who does not want to listen to us.
All right, so across all platforms, do you know? Well, this one's gonna be really easy for you to answer. But what is our most listened to episode across all platforms? This is including YouTube.
Across all platforms?
Yes.
Okay, so there was the Fast and the Furious one, which is still rising for some godforsaken reason. We need to figure out what we did right on that
Yes.
one and
Episode
redo it.
12 about the Fast and the Furious. That wasn't even one of our in my mind, that wasn't even one of our better episodes. Like,
No, it was. It's an hour and 20 minutes.
mm-hmm.
We barely, and we neither one of us came prepared for that.
No.
We didn't watch any of the Fast and Furious movies. We just bumbled and goofed around talking vaguely about Fast and the Furious and what we vaguely remembered about it, and that was it.
Okay, so I didn't mention it before, but so the Lord of the Rings podcast episode, which was our longest, was 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 2 seconds, and then the total total plays on the Fast and Furious podcast at the time of recording this is probably going to go up, is 8,620 plays.
The impression rate or the impression on this number of impressions is 76.7 thousand or 76.7K. That
I don't know what we did with that.
Crazy. Well, and also this is another thing. I don't understand like what YouTube is doing, because why did they push that video so many times, so much more than they do other videos, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's getting viewed because it's getting pushed.
Yeah.
Why is it getting pushed? What did we do? I don't understand YouTube.
Yeah, the YouTube algorithm is still very confusing to even me. I don't.
We have a lot to figure out.
Yeah, I don't really understand the YouTube algorithm, which is probably why we haven't grown as much as we, wanted to. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, so excluding YouTube, excluding all the plays we get on YouTube, do you know what our most listened to episode is?
If it's still Gilligan's Island, then I'm gonna say Gilligan's Island with I think what I last saw was 37 views.
Yes, so across all platforms, excluding YouTube, it was 37 plays. Y'all really like listening to us on YouTube as opposed to everywhere else. Although
I think a lot of it also
I will say,
people just click on it,
yeah,
whereas
I will say generally
yeah.
our um rate, like our actual the rate of people actually listening through the whole thing is better on all the other platforms as opposed to YouTube.
Now, I will say though, I have seen an increase in our watch time go up on the podcast since we started doing the video format. Now, obviously, our we haven't figured out everything with it, so we're not the most. I mean, you look at me and David, we're not the most visually pleasing to begin with, but our lighting and our cameras aren't the greatest, so we also have to deal with that. So we're still working on things, but I have seen it go up
Mm-hmm.
since we've started doing the video version.
All right, so
I mean, the Lord of the Rings one that you were talking about here, our Lord of the Rings one has like a well, that's not great, but it's 5-10 minutes average watch
mm-hmm.
time
All right, so
of a 2 hour video. So that's not great. But anyways.
do you know what our shortest podcast episode has been?
Well, because I just looked at the one and it was well, are we including the pilot?
Um,
That was like 45 minutes, so
okay, I'm going to exclude because the pilot would be the shortest. I'm going to exclude the pilot.
so if we're including the pilot, it'd be the second shortest. But my guess is going to be because I just saw that the Fast and Furious was 1 minute and 20 seconds. No, 1 hour and 20 minutes. That's what it was. I'm gonna guess that it's that one.
No, there. Not including the pilot, there are two other episodes that are under an hour.
Wow.
Yes.
Which ones?
Okay, so the two
Definitely have
are
to be older ones.
yes, the two are episodes 5 and 6. 5 being DC. We talked about DC Comics, and 6 being when we talked
Uh,
about Mario.
okay. How long were they?
Um. Okay, so the DC Comics one was 41 minutes and 43 seconds, and the Mario one was 58 minutes and 19 seconds. So Mario one almost got to an hour.
We were also doing that when I was moving, and I didn't have the greatest place to record. So that's probably a
Mm-hmm.
good thing that those were a little shorter. I was very uncomfortable doing those. It was not a very comfortable arrangement recording those.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that. So yeah, well, hopefully that was somewhat entertaining for y'all to listen to. Just kind of going over some of our stats. That's really all I have as
I
far as
doubt it.
that goes. Yeah, I doubt it. But yeah. Um, Other than that, I don't know really if we have that much else to talk about.
I don't think so. Outside of since we were just talking about that and this being our 25th episode, obviously it's only been 25 episodes that we've been doing this, so we're not going to blow up overnight. We're nobody special here to begin with, so we're just kind of trying to gain traction as we go. Um, but for those of you who do listen and actually make it all the way to this episode here, or the episode this, I guess this episode, but also the end of this episode, and are listening to this right now, tell people about this. If
Mm-hmm.
you like it and you know someone else who likes it, spread the word a little bit. Let them know. Every single Monday we come out with new content. And that's not going to change. We're going to be doing this the rest of the year, and we're going to keep going next year. It's just going to keep coming out. So new
Yep,
content,
new
and
content every Monday.
um, and the more people that listen, the better the content gets,
Yep.
because that's how these things work. But we're doing really good. I think we've been steadily growing. Getting more and more listeners on Spotify, and other on our Spotify app that we use to track all that stuff. We're getting a lot more on there. YouTube's starting to do pretty good too. But yeah, make sure to check us out on YouTube if you listen to us on the podcast, any podcast sites, and if you listen to us on the podcast sites, be sure to check us out on our YouTube channel because we put out more than just just these podcast videos. We put out recaps of movies
And on YouTube,
for
we have started doing the actual video podcast of the podcast.
yeah.
So if you want to
Yeah.
actually
So
see our faces for some reason, I don't know why you would. We're both pretty ugly, especially Wesley. But
yeah.
but yes, we
No lie.
do movie recaps, and we have been taking a break from shorts, but the plan is to keep doing those too. And yeah, we got some other
Yeah,
stuff
find
planned
a
too.
consistent schedule.
Yeah, we got some other stuff planned too.
But
so-
yeah, just check us out, and if you like what we do, please support us. If you don't like what we do, then you don't have to do anything.
Yep.
And if you're family and you don't really care to listen to this, don't put yourself through it. We are okay. We'd rather you enjoy yourself than do it just because you want to support us. Every one of our listeners leaves. All right, so
Anyway, do you have anything else to add?
I think that's it, David.
All right. Well, in that case, y'all join us next week.
Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to
Copyright.
me.
Hold on, wait,
Happy
wait, that's
birthday,
copyrighted.
dear
Hold on,
me.
wait. No.
Happy
Can't sing
birthday,
that.
dear me.
Can't sing that. It's copywritten.
Who owns it?
Warner
Who
Brothers.
owns it? Really?
Yes.
What? Screw Warner Brothers.
Yeah, Warner Brothers owns the copyright to that song.
Well, tell them to sue me on my birthday.
Yeah, Sue Wesley, don't bring me into this.
Yeah. Sue me.
Anyway,
I'll take them to court.
next week we'll be talking about the Blue Beetle. So if that interests you, come back next week.